Hello and welcome back. Today I'm going to be watching and reacting to a what if video. What if Germany had invaded Britain? So this one I've always been curious about. I actually just replied to a comment talking about this, but it's kind of on the Russia side. What if the Soviet Union was conquered, was taken out of the war, and then all the focus was on the West, on Britain and the US. So this is kind of along the same lines. I had this in my mind. I found it. I'm doing it. What if Germany had invaded Britain? I think, of course, Germany had the Luftwaffe was just so ahead of its game, it seemed like. I don't know if it was exactly their tactics or their planes or both combined, but I do know that Britain did have the best navy, probably at the time. I could only imagine, Japan was up there as well, the US near the end, but Britain was probably, throughout all of World War II, the biggest and best navy at the time, so it would be really hard for Germany to actually invade it, I think. But maybe I'm completely wrong there. Maybe their ships were too spread out. I do not know. But we're going to watch this and learn. And with these what ifs, I always like to hear your scenarios with what do you think would have happened? What is a better scenario than perhaps what this video is going to present, or you could add on to it? So I want to hear that. I love hearing those, and I actually changed my mind. There's one other what if video that I did so far. My mind was changed in one aspect thanks to this comment, and we got into discussion, and I was like, you know what? You're right, that probably would have happened. I think it was if the US lost the Revolutionary War, what would it be today? What if scenario? So that was that. And I enjoyed the comments. So let's jump into this one and see what would have happened with this nice little cartoon guy right here.
In 1940, after France fell, it seemed like a real possibility as the bombs rained down on Britain that the UK was going to face the German army rolling onto their shores and conquering the island. A full-scale invasion of Britain.
Wasn't this Operation Sea Lion? Was that, I think it was. Barbarossa was Soviet Union? Operation Barbarossa, and I think this was the Operation Sea Lion, whatever the Germans called it.
Now, Wargaming came to me in this sponsor, saying how in the new World of Tanks war stories, Operation Sea Lion, that invasion became a reality. The Nazis in World War II don't just stay on the mainland, but invade the United Kingdom. Well, we all know that didn't happen. The UK persevered, very much to Hitler's dismay, and a few years later, it was the British instead sailing the Channel and taking out the Nazis. What would have been the plan to invade the UK was called Operation Sea Lion. It's such a popular concept in alternate history, it surprises me why I didn't cover it sooner. So let's imagine what if in an alternate timeline, the Nazis had followed through with Operation Sea Lion. They invade Britain. First thing I want to answer is, what would be the objective of the invasion itself? This seems pretty weird to say, considering we're talking about Nazi Germany. Invasion for the sake of invasion would be a simple enough reason. Hitler adding to territory for the Reich, like a Risk game. But in Britain's case, this was never the situation. Invading Britain was the absolute last thing the Nazis wanted to do. Hitler wanted the British to simply surrender once France fell so he could focus on the main event, the invasion of Russia. If the British morale was so low, then maybe they'd ask for peace, hence the bombings. But then Winston Churchill defiantly showed this was not the case, and Germany realized the UK wasn't going to simply let this go.
That's one that I should either watch or react to. The Winston Churchill speeches that he would give to the people. Really good. Really, really good. I don't know if he scripted it or if he was just a genius and he just went on it on the fly and said all those things. But that's very, inspiring, especially at the time. What he says, the quotes from him, it's incredible.
Operation Sea Lion wasn't an invasion of conquest, but of desperation, if anything. Nobody in the German high command, even Hitler himself, had confidence in the plan. But why? Britannia, and the ruling the seas part. Even though Germany had the Blitzkrieg on their side, they never came close to the naval capabilities of the British. That channel absolutely terrified the Germans. The idea of having to cross it and land troops on the island was just an absolute logistical nightmare.
And to my knowledge, they've never really done anything like this, correct? I mean, I'm sure there's small versions of this, but no, Normandy's, but flopped around, flipped around on the German side. They never did a huge naval, invasion of anyone, or a small naval invasion. I'm sure they did, like Cyprus and stuff like that, but nothing to an extent where they would need their full navy power, which, like they said, was no match for Britain.
Most people, especially in the Navy, doubted the Reich even had the ships to pull it off. Even for the Navy powers of Britain and America, D-Day was a practical miracle that the amphibious landing was even achieved. And that included 4 years of naval combat experience and added superiority on the seas. The Germans didn't have the naval experience or the Navy numbers to even put a dent in His Majesty's Navy. And they knew if they attempted to invade, their forces would be decimated by the British before even reaching the shore. So although nobody was confident in the plan, Hitler laid out 4 requirements they'd need to meet before moving on to such an invasion. I'll include those in the scenario. In this alternate timeline, let's go easy on the Germans, and say all the requirements Hitler had are met for them to go forward with the invasion. The Germans win the Battle of Britain. The Royal Air Force is decimated. Sometime in September, the Royal Navy is distracted off the coast of Norway and Italy, giving them enough time to clear the few British ships or mines from the channel. Any that enter are simply destroyed by German artillery. The next phase goes to the Kriegsmarine, the German Navy. Now the Kriegsmarine are down on their luck. They barely had the capabilities to really do much at all. And because they were so small, if Germany lost a ship, it hurt them far more than if the British lost theirs. The Navy would need to ship troops across the channel. This brings on images of the Allies on D-Day with these landers, but for the Germans, they only had 2 prototypes for a similar ship in 1940. So if you were a German soldier in the invasion, you'd be placed in a modified riverboat. If you were lucky, yours would actually control itself. But most had to be towed by tugboats. You'd be a part of a 67,000 men invasion force shipping from northern France to southern England in the cover of night. The objective is to secure the beachhead, set up artillery along the English coast, and use it to sink any ships entering the channel. Then when all that was achieved, the Germans would encircle London, trap it, and then force a surrender. The farthest north that Germany would go is just a little bit south of Cambridge. Because, once again, the Germans hoped that the British would just surrender. And as is tradition, what if they didn't, you ask? Well, what it seems like would have happened is the Germans would have just been stuck on an island, isolated from mainland Europe, where any help or supplies is just sunk by a nation with a far superior navy and air force. So, you say, that really seems like Nazi Germany is in a bit of a huge mess. In fact, instead of Operation Sea Lion being the final death of the Allies like it often is perceived as in the media, it seems more like it would have been a bungled mess due to the limitations of the German Navy and the superiority of Britain's. And for the first time, Jimmy, you would be right. In an alternate timeline where Nazi Germany invaded Britain, even if they did encircle London, I believe the British simply would have moved up the border and used their naval and air superiority to destroy the German supply lines, essentially just stranding 60,000 Germans on an island with no escape. A reverse Dunkirk. That's not even including the Americans who eventually would have been involved in the war anyway. The reason why
a reverse Dunkirk, that's pretty accurate, I feel like. That just reminded me of a video that I'm going to do that react to. It's Dunkirk, but from the German perspective. So something a little more, interesting. We all know what it's like from the Allies' perspective, but what was it like for the Germans' perspective? I don't really know. That's why I have the video going to watch it. But that seems like it's kind of like a reverse Dunkirk, and they would kind of screw themselves over. I mean, yeah, the Luftwaffe was really good. Their U-boats were great, but I mean, and this is all without, the U.S. help. And they would never surrender, I feel like. Never surrender, just like, oh, our capital's surrounded. Yeah, we give up, and here's our whole entire navy. I mean, like, It just seems unrealistic. It seems like, though, the Germans just knew how unrealistic it was. They would have to clear out the Soviet Union, finish them, and it would kind of free up their time and resources to actually conduct Operation Sea Lion. But at that time, I feel like the U.S. would fully be into it and, really be 110% behind the Allies. Yeah, it seems quite unrealistic.
Operation Sea Lion was scrapped was because even Hitler, the same guy that thought invading Russia was a good idea, had the foresight to see how much Germany would lose to Britain. If the Germans went through with it, it probably would have been a drawn-out failure. Southern England still would have seen a catastrophic loss of life, far more than in our timeline. With supply lines cut, it's likely the Germans resort to looting and pillaging, but eventually they'd surrender. And this surrender would prove Churchill's words that Britain would continue to fight, and prove Germany wasn't as invincible as everybody thought. This might even potentially push back German plans to invade the Soviet Union, force them to reevaluate. But that's more speculative though. What do you think would have happened? So even though in my scenario I predicted Germany would lose, it doesn't mean there wouldn't be a battle or two. And as a massive fan of World of Tanks, I'm glad they introduced war stories.
Another great segue into a sponsor there. So same question to you. What do you think would have happened? Would it even be possible? I think it would have to be, Germany would have to clear out the Soviet Union, beat them before they could even really consider the invasion Operation Sea Lion. And even then, it would be too long, too late, and allies such as the US would join in the war. Okay, I like this. I like these, just a few more, what if scenarios I'm going to be diving into. Just enjoy them and enjoy the chats and the discussions behind them. Let's see if there's any good comments. I fear no man, but that thing, the English Channel, it scares me. That's Germany. That was Germany. That was definitely them back in the day. If you know the original quote, this one's pretty funny. There would be a cup of tea behind each blade of grass. General Erwin Rommel. That's a pretty good one. And if you don't know, it's about invading the US and that there's a gun behind every blade of grass, which is a little extreme, but kind of true at the same time. Germany steps on water. British. So you have chosen death. That's true. That's true. They've ruled the seas forever. Germany, right here. Germany, surrender. UK, lol, no. Germany, understandable. Have a great day. I mean, kind of what happened as well. But overall, these what ifs, fun to do, fun to discuss, and let me know what you think. Let me know your what if for this scenario. Could they have invaded Britain? Could it have been invaded? And what would have happened if it happened? What would be the domino effect before or after this would happen? So until next time, thanks for joining. We'll do more of these. And until next time, have a good rest of your day.